is yours.
Great, thank you. So first, I'll welcome everyone to the first night of budget deliberations for 2021. This is obviously the first time we're doing this virtually, so I did want to thank everyone in advance for their patience. Also, as a reminder, we're in a budget committee meeting, not a council meeting. So for those listening at home, things may sound a bit different. The format is different and less formal. You may notice some gaps or longer pauses as we confirm information from staff or develop motions on the fly. And any decision made in budget committee isn't final until the budget's passed. That means that anything can come back for reconsideration or adjustment as we go. We've seen that happen in past budget committee deliberations, and it's a helpful reminder that can happen at any point. To help make the process smoother, I'll ask committee members, if you can, to send your motions in advance to staff so they can be prepared as voting questions to get up to do the electronic voting. Before starting, I did want to thank those members of the public that have provided feedback via open houses, emails, surveys, and deputations. While staff have worked for months to follow council priorities and develop a draft budget, it's up to this committee to take ownership of the process and finalize a budget that recognizes and respects cost to community members and balances investment. It's also important to remember that while budget committee only meets for a brief time to finalize the annual budget, it is council priorities and decisions throughout the year that build the foundation for this process. It's also important that we understand the long-term impact of our decisions and approach this process with integrity and thoughtfulness. So with that, we will get started, and I will begin by asking for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. I don't see any hands, so we will pass it along to Gord for the results of community engagement.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank everyone, all the members of the public and council for all the involvement that has been provided in this 2021 budget. So first in the fall, we had our survey where we had probably the most responses we've ever had on our survey. I think we had over 600 written responses of comments, plus well over 1,000 actually did answer the survey. We then last week had after we presented the budget, last week we had our 3 Facebook Live events. And normally, pre-COVID, we would go out to host these community consultation meetings out in the community. And there are some pros in that you get to have casual conversations with citizens and answer their questions about the budget. But one of the outstanding things about the Facebook Live ones was just the sheer number of people that logged on and participated by asking their questions and listened to the replays later in the evening of those Facebook Live events. We literally had at least 250 to 500 people on each session that would stay on for extended amounts of times and listen to at least sections of the presentations and question and answer period. So that was just tremendous, and I think council needs to consider continuing that into the future. There were many questions asked and answered during those Facebook Live events. We've transposed those answers, and all the questions and answers are available on Let's Talk CK. If anyone would like to visit that page, to the 2021 budget page there, and see the answers to all the questions that were asked. And in addition, additionally, since those Facebook Live events have happened, there's been a few more questions over the weekend that have been answered there as well. And also like to point out to council tab 9G, and of course all this information is online on our 2021 draft budget page as well. But there's all the information that we have is also available online and in the council's budget binders. And in addition, later in our agenda, we have additional deputations that we have to read tonight. So just want to thank everyone for all the participation in this year's budget. Thanks.
Thanks, Gord. And we'll move on to new information compiled since our last budget introduction session. And over to Steve.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So since at the opening night, we did receive several requests from council for additional information. So the next several slides, I'll just go over some of what was asked and where you can find the information as well. And so on the municipal website, we have now included a new information section. So in this section, you can find the overview by revenue and expense, and that'll be covered off in the next slide that I cover. Also on there, you can find the 2019 capital asset addition listing, the 2020 detailed approved budget. So that's the more fulsome budget that you can take a look at, and also the 2020 municipal grant budget. So this slide here breaks out the overall requests within the budget by expense and revenue category. It does the adjustment in inflation. So that's the items that build into our base budget requests of 3.96. And it also includes the one-time requests. And a lot of these are for one-time projects. I like to specifically take a look at the salaries, wages, and benefits line. So on the far right side of that, you see the percent change is 4.64. But this includes the adjustment in inflation and the one-time requests. So for the one-time requests, you're at about 4 million versus the adjustment in inflation of about 2.5 million. So a significant portion of that 4.64 is actually for one-time requests such as emergency housing. We were also asked for a breakdown of both the Capitol Theatre and the John D. Bradley Center. So here is the 2021 draft budget for the Capitol Theatre. It's the exact same as the 2020 approved final budget. So I would like to highlight in this that the capital budget overall impact on the net levy is $70,000. Moving on to the Bradley Center, the overall impact on the net levy is just slightly over 1 million, but of this, about 555,000 of that is towards the long-term debt. So once this expires, the impact would be closer to about 445,000. We were also asked about the tax-funded debt, and in particular, sort of what's happened since this council term. So in 2018, when council was sworn in late 2018, the overall tax-funded debt was just over 14 million. And by 2022, this number is actually going down to about 7.5 million. So this is comprised of currently in the 2021 budget, social housing, the John D. Bradley Center, and Riverview Gardens. When council was first sworn in, there was some outstanding amount for the roads and bridges also. So those were the additional information that was requested, and I'll pass it back over to the chair.
Thanks, Steve. We'll move on next to deputations.
Hi, this first deputation is from Linda Shaw. Your worship and members, I am writing in the hopes that you will reconsider the devastation the proposed bike lanes would have on the value as well as the appearance of my property and that of my neighbors. I have lived my whole life in Chatham and loved this city. I have also been a municipal employee for over 20 years, now retired, and have seen many changes here. It was my greatest dream to purchase a home on beautiful historical Victoria Avenue. After 50 years, I have found my dream home. I have put a lot of love and care into this house, and I am proud to say it is mine. My property is minuscule, but because of the layout, looks wonderful. We have a few large, beautiful trees out front, and my neighbors take very good care of their properties. A bike lane would change this. As my parking is out front, to move my vehicles close to my home would make my property look like the homes on Park Avenue, where the sidewalk is by their front porch steps, what totally ruined the value of their homes, in my opinion. Please reconsider, in fact, consider this situation as if my home was yours. Would you ruin the value of your home for a bike lane that may or may not be spectacularly used? I feel Chatham could better utilize our tax dollars addressing our homeless situation. Think of these vulnerable people as your own, who now sleep in doorways on King Street and in our parks. I never thought I'd see the day when people couldn't afford housing or see services that have a minimum 2 years wait. Consider purchasing a building for a shelter to assist these people. Many vacant buildings exist in Chatham. The money you save on unnecessary things could change lives. Remember, the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Madame Gatti. Thanking you in advance, Miss Linda Shaw.
This deputation is from Brian and Jane Wright. We write to encourage the municipality to continue with the much-needed infrastructure project for Victoria Ave in Chatham. New sewer lines and connections only. The municipality is looking at increasing taxes during difficult times for all homeowners in the municipality. There is an opportunity to save some substantial money on Victoria Ave by doing what is necessary for the upgrade sewer system only. The traffic impact study shows that the 2 left turning lanes would be of little benefit for safety and are therefore not a necessary expense. The underground hydro lines will add tremendous cost to the project. As the current system is not deemed unsafe, there is no reason to install underground hydro at this time. The bike lanes are controversial, the street is narrow, the road will have to be repaved after the sewer work. That is true. Local residents are against the bike lanes for many reasons. The huge concern is actually need at a time when there is little money to go around. Using extreme economic times, the frills are gone from the projects and just the necessary work is done. We believe this is the approach in these tough economic times. Do the infrastructure / sewer work only. However, if you absolutely must spend more money at the most, all that should be done is simply bike lanes and no left turn lanes or underground hydro. The bike lanes would have to be done with care and concern for the trees on the boulevard and safety of all citizens and the ambience of the historic street. The sidewalks should remain where they are, not adjacent to the bike lanes. The street lamps would remain as previously promised.
This deputation is from Melissa Cruikshank. I am a rural resident of Chatham-Kent. I strongly opposed to the proposed 3.96% tax increase. The current COVID-19 pandemic has caused us to be living in unprecedented times. In response, we need strong and innovative leadership from municipal government. I suggest that the proposed budget is revisited with the goal of delivering a 0% tax increase, as has been done in recent years in the nearby city of Windsor, as well as other municipalities across Essex County. Our community is suffering from many losses due to the pandemic. Small businesses, which are the lifeblood of our local economy, are barely hanging on. Many have closed. Many residents have lost their jobs. Our local healthcare providers and first responders are severely overworked. Adding to the burdens of residents with a tax increase is unwise and out of touch with reality. It is meaningless to promote any municipal tax increase as being in line with inflation when so many residents of Chatham-Kent are either unemployed or are working low-paying jobs and have not seen wage increases in years. We in Chatham-Kent have had annual increases to municipal taxes every year. It is time to stop this trend. We are also facing record increases in the cost of living. The food price report from Dalhousie University reports that annual grocery costs are set to skyrocket in 2021 with an increase of 5%, which equates to $695 per household. Ontario has the highest electricity prices in North America, with increases of 71% from 2006 to 2018, according to the Fraser Institute. The federal government has implemented a carbon tax, which also increases the cost of everything from gasoline and diesel fuel to home heating bills to tracking of essential goods. Grain farmers, also a major part of our community, are faced with skyrocketing costs for fuel and natural gas as they are working to feed our cities. Families are doing their best to adapt to sharp increases in the cost of living by reassessing their budgets and doing without many things. The municipality needs to do the same by revising their budget plans. As a small, sparsely populated and largely rural municipality, Chatham-Kent needs to govern in a way that reflects these difficult times by coming back to taxpayers with a 0% tax increase for budget 2021.
This deputation was submitted by Cynthia Vink. As a taxpaying resident who is so very fortunate to own a beautiful small home in lovely Chatham, I'm pleading that you do not raise taxes, as I already pay extremely high and substantial tax for this privilege. I am on a fixed income and every dollar is already spoken for after COVID 2020 and now 2021. Like many parents and friends my age, I am helping 2 children and their families to survive after they have had their businesses shut and permanently lost due to COVID. Use reserves. Sincerely, Cynthia Vink.
This deputation is from Susan Nettle, Victoria Ave Upgrades. To whom it may concern, just a note of thanks to say thank you for the bike lanes. Now all of Chatham-Kent residents can enjoy the beauty of this historic street. Sincerely, Susan Nettle.
This deputation is from Laurie Ramsden. Why are you allowing a $6.4 million raise in wages when most people are just fighting to keep their head above water? If you want to be a hero and have a 0% increase, coincidentally, the shortfall and the wage increase are almost dollar to dollar.
This deputation was submitted by Paul and Virginia McPhail. Dear Budget Chair and Council, we ask that the sewer work be done, the present street surface be replaced, and the present sidewalks remain. Please do not remove or damage our trees. The McPhail family has called 330 Victoria Ave, Chatham, Ontario, home for 28 years. We have 3 rows of trees on the west side and 2 rows of trees on the east side of beautiful historical Victoria Avenue. This is an unneeded expense during this COVID-19 time. We strongly oppose the bike walking lanes beside an active traffic lane and narrowing of traffic lanes. Over the years, we have seen tire marks and snowmobile marks on the present boulevard. Without a safety buffer, we are concerned for pedestrian safety and about water, snow splashing on pedestrians without the safety of a tree line. We oppose the proposed left turn lanes at Grand Ave and McNaughton Ave. We support the present 3-way stop at Amelia Street. It is midway between Grand Ave and McNaughton Ave. We are against the roundabout at Gladstone Ave and Stephenson Ave. The proposal calls for the traffic lanes to narrow as the traffic enters the roundabout. We see that as unsafe. The roundabout will also increase traffic noise as vehicles increase speed coming out of the roundabout. There is a pedestrian crosswalk south of the roundabout, and southbound traffic may have difficulty seeing the pedestrian crossing. We ask that you update the sewer system and leave the rest of the plans on the planning table. Thank you for your kind consideration. Yours truly, Paul and Virginia McPhail.
This deputation is from Patty and Aaron McPhail. Dear Mayor Caniff and Chatham-Kent Council, we are lifelong residents of Chatham-Kent and love this community and everything it has to offer. Now more than ever before, the residents of Chatham-Kent cannot afford an increase to their property tax. We are grateful that Council recognizes that too and appreciate the motions made back in August to achieve a 0% tax increase. We read in the Chatham Voice that the theme of this year's budget is investing in our future, which largely focuses on infrastructure. While we agree wholeheartedly investing in Chatham-Kent infrastructure, we believe there is a great amount of savings to be had within the proposed Victoria Ave project. We are respectfully requesting that you revisit the decisions that were made regarding the upgrades to Victoria Ave back in May of 2020. So much has happened since then. Our council economy, municipality's economy, like many others across our province and country, is struggling. In our opinion, 3 motions that were voted on to move forward last spring cannot be justified today given the numerous other priorities that require funding across our community. Supporting our small businesses, COVID-19 related costs, viable solutions for our homeless population, and the urgent upgrades that are required for Erie Shore Drive, just to name a few. The motion to install left-hand turn lanes at the intersection of McNaughton Ave and Grand Ave was voted on to move forward following an 8 to 10 vote. We hope that Council will discuss this decision further, including the municipality's traffic impact study that was completed for this project. Page 7, paragraph 2 of the document speaks to the consultant's recommendation regarding the proposed left-hand turn lane. To paraphrase the findings of the study, left-hand turn lanes would improve operations minimally at the intersection of McNaughton and Grand. The report speaks to safety concerns as well. However, ultimately, it recommends that left-hand turn lanes would be appropriate in the future when the intersections are reconstructed. We do not have any insight into how much the widening of the road and installation of the lanes would cost, but we were wondering why the municipality bothers with paying for the research and consulting work if we don't follow the recommendations. Additionally, Council is committed to the preservation of trees across Chatham-Kent and the widening of Victoria Ave. Near these intersections will no doubt put the health of many beautiful trees at great risk. The sewer upgrades alone is going to put numerous trees along the Ave at risk, which we understand cannot be avoided. However, we hope whomever is chosen to complete the sewer upgrades uses the most invasive method possible, the least invasive method possible. The additions of heritage lighting along Chatham or Victoria Ave would be amazing. However, it is a want, not a need. Our understanding is the price tag attached to this upgrade is $750,000. We cannot support spending that money at this time on the cosmetics of Victoria Ave. For some, the addition of bike lanes would also be a welcome addition. For others, including the majority of residents along Victoria Ave, bike lanes are not desired for a variety of reasons, frontage, parking, etc. Regardless, bike lanes too are a want, not a need. Our recollection is that the quote for this upgrade was $225,000, which is believed is an extreme modest estimate. Gravel cannot be laid for that price to cover the area that is being considered. Spending that much money cannot be justified, especially when a north-south bound bike lane route could be installed in a much more cost-effective manner by painting markings on streets that are already wide enough to accommodate bike lanes. Orangewood Boulevard, Sandy Streets. The sewer upgrade is long overdue for Victoria Ave. We are told the existing sewer system dates back to the 1920s. Replacing this aging infrastructure is an expense that we completely support. We appreciate that Council has tough decisions to make with regard to the 2021 budget. Please fight to achieve the goal that you made in August for a 0% tax increase for our community. We are counting on you to lead us during a very difficult time, which we acknowledge is no easy undertaking. Please allocate our tax dollars towards the true needs in our community. Thank you for your time and consideration of our concern. Sincerely, Patty and Aaron McPhail.
This deputation is from Andrew Gibson. As a concerned citizen and taxpayer, I have to question the need for an environmental climate change technologist. What does this person do and how will this help our community? I would think taking care of our infrastructure would be more important than worrying about the weather.
This deputation was submitted by James Griffin, member of CK Municipal Heritage Committee, and on behalf of the committee. Mayor Caniff and councilors, on behalf of your Municipal Heritage Committee, I'd like to offer our support of the Save Victoria Group's deputations that council has received regarding Victoria Avenue during this week's budget consultations. The Municipal Heritage Committee strongly believes in protecting the heritage of Victoria Ave and doing as little damage or change as possible to the historic look and feel of the street as it is now during any construction. The Municipal Heritage Committee respectfully recommends that you support the efforts of Save Victoria Group in regards to Victoria Avenue reconstruction, thus helping to preserve the distinct heritage of the street. Thank you.
This deputation is from Corey Kuchar. Is there a plan to review the need to continue to maintain a dedicated municipal office in each of the municipal zones? Could we not save money and increase our cash reserve by divesting these locations to a single consolidated location in Chatham? This will result in reduced headcount as well.
This deputation is from Teresa Hardy. To Council, I currently reside at 242 Victoria Avenue, and I am very concerned about the recommended tax hike. I am in full support for the infrastructure, but I don't believe that we should be going into debt for bike lanes. We really need to get our town priorities aligned, and this bike lane project isn't where future tax dollars should be spent. While I don't have any detailed reports to support my next statement, I can tell you that we had a very lovely summer last year and a beautiful fall, and I didn't see a massive amount of bike riders on our street or further down Victoria where there are bike lanes. If you want to do something for the community, spend the dollars on a massive facelift. When you enter Chatham from the highway, you need to focus on cleaning things up. First impressions do count. Another area of opportunity would be to fix the aging infrastructure and our roads. Please give this ample thought and don't bring on too much debt for a project that really only serves a very small portion of our population. Sincerely, Teresa Hardy.
This deputation was submitted by Linda Campbell, Board Chair of the Chatham-Kent Public Library Board. Mr. Mayor, Chairman of the Budget Committee, and members of Council, the Chatham-Kent Public Library Board appreciates this opportunity to present background information to Council's budget deliberations. It's been a strange year filled with unforeseen challenges, but the good news is that Chatham-Kent Public Library is strong, connected, and more relevant than ever to the residents of our municipality. The strategic goal of Chatham-Kent Public Library is to create a welcoming, accessible, and inclusive gateway to culture that also encourages Chatham-Kent residents to engage with the virtual world. Despite a 4-month closure in 2021 and subsequent restrictions, Chatham-Kent Public Library continues to provide a high and sustained level of service to our patrons. As a public service, the library is a constant presence in people's lives, ensuring that individuals and families remain connected to the world around them through both our virtual and traditional services, including outreach programming. Not surprisingly, since last year's closure, virtual and online usage is up. In 2020, the number of new virtual library cards issued increased by 73%. E-resource borrowing increased by over 40%. Social media interactions are also strong, reaching an all-time high in November. When curbside service was introduced, the borrowing of physical materials increased exponentially. Unfortunately, this well-accepted and actively used service is unaffected by the recent lockdown measures. Public library personnel adapted, pivoted, and innovated to offer creative, relevant new programs and services to our communities. They created craft-to-go kits distributed at no cost to families. Through a partnership with the University of Waterloo, STEM kits offer exciting alternative learning opportunities for children in virtual classroom settings. Our children's librarian conducted online presentations about coding with virtual classrooms, sessions which are demanded by teachers throughout the system. All Libraryware has asked to highlight the Chatham-Kent Public Library Reading Challenge promotional campaign in their marketing to library systems across North America. Subscription bags of books, virtual book clubs, and delivery services for homebound seniors ensure residents keep up with their reading and explore new things. Other undertakings such as Lit Bits videos, weekly trivia nights, and the selfie social media campaign keep up morale while encouraging people to interact with library systems in new ways. Curbside service has truly evolved most effectively. Our operational plans for 2021 include transitioning the annual Read Local CK Author Festival to a virtual event, expanding partnerships with community organization, increasing virtual library card registrations, promoting the Ask Chatham-Kent Public Library reference and research service, and developing the current website so it becomes an interactive virtual community hub, just to name a few. Mostly, we are greatly anticipate returning to normal branch operations. The Chatham-Kent Public Library Board realizes that this year's municipal budget deliberations are especially challenging and has considered the current reality in our budget discussions. As always, we appreciate your support. Moreover, we wish to recognize Councillors OJ, Pinsnow, Latimer, and Finn for their many contributions to the board, and Tanya Sharp, our CEO, Chief Librarian, for her leadership during these challenging times. The library is essential to our community. Thank you. Linda Campbell, Board Chair.
This deputation is from the Downtown Wallaceburg Business Improvement Association. Deputation in response to police service budget requests. Honorable Mayor Caniff and members of council, it has come to our attention that the Chatham Police Service has submitted 2 funding requests regarding improving community safety in the Chatham downtown core area, items 5 and 6. Subsequently, the Downtown Wallaceburg BIA Board of Directors feel it is prudent that we bring up our current and ongoing struggle with community safety in our downtown. Last week alone, there was 3 separate break-ins, robberies, and this week another on Tuesday evening, all at downtown Wallaceburg businesses. These events are costly in terms of products stolen, repairs, and threat to future business investments in our downtown. Recently, the BIA has begun the process of creating a long-term strategy for downtown revitalization. Feedback recently from our public input survey indicates that security safety is considered a top weakness for our core. Business owners have also echoed that some sentiments over and over again throughout the years, making it a top priority of the BIA. Although our business community has stepped up by actively reporting incidents such as squatters in vacant building, vandalism, multiple break-ins, there is only so much we can do. Without a large response to the crime downtown by Chatham-Kent Police, we feel our impact as a BIA will be extremely limited in terms of the help we are able to provide our members and our ability to attract new investments to fill our vacant buildings and storefronts. For these reasons and more, we feel security and community safety are paramount to our objectives as well as the Council's term priorities of growth and community wellness. We request that you actively consider our needs as the 2nd largest population center in Chatham-Kent as you deliberate over this year's budget. Respectfully submitted, Board of Directors, Downtown Wallaceburg, BIA.
This deputation is from Corey Kutra. In order to reduce the total tax burden increase of 3.96%, has Council considered pushing back to each of the budget line item owners to reduce their funding dollars needed to maintain services? This can be achieved by some of the following: consideration of municipal employee furloughs and mandatory municipal employee salary freezes, explore cost saving through contract policing services with OPP, reducing the number of satellite police stations, EMS stations, fire department stations, and municipal offices.
This deputation was submitted by Keith Hipkins. I would be sorely disappointed in my councillors if our new budget were to reduce library services in Chatham-Kent, particularly during this pandemic, which has forced council to deliberate online instead of in person. Our libraries provide wholesome activity which does not impinge upon rules regarding gatherings. Readers know each other, and often we have online opportunities to discuss recent borrowings and to make recommendations. Although the Ridgetown branch remains closed to the public, the librarians are skilled in finding similar borrowings which match their clients' interests, which they know well. When many provincial jurisdictions have no library services, we remain fortunate here. I hope it continues.
This deputation is from Mark Miko. I struggle to see where a 3.96% increase is justified when other municipalities are moving forward with much less. With so many people struggling due to lockdown and job closure, how can we justify this? The average home price in Chatham-Kent is over $300,000, meaning you're taking almost $500 more out of most people, and I've failed to see any improvement in services. Our parks are only cut every 2 to 3 weeks and are in horrible shape in the spring when grass grows quickly. Also, most roads are plowed several days after snowfall. The taxes we pay in Chatham are more than riverfront property in Windsor. This makes absolutely no sense. I would ask if we get to a budget of 1%. Mark Miko.
This deputation is from Ellis Paquette. You need to lower the tax increase. Find savings like you would in your own house. Cut some things, including employees. Times are tough and not every household is even near your quoted average, and there are a lot of seniors' incomes that do not increase.
This deputation is from Jim McDonnell. Get rid of half the council that do nothing until elections get close, then show up at your doorstep asking to vote for them.
This deputation is from Bill Prime. Since it's my privilege to live in CK, it is also my privilege and responsibility to have my voice heard in the events and activities in CK, especially those that affect my property taxes. At a time when the world has come to a standstill by provincial and national politicians who are playing doctor, this would be a good occasion for all to have a close look at what we like, what we want, and what we need. We like everything to be just right. We want everything our way. What we need is a super dose of common sense. There have been plenty of governments and religions that have used the precept of keep the general population ignorant and you can control them. On the subject of ignorance, today our children are all being homeschooled. But let's be honest, internet in CK sucks. And the lessons are interrupted by connections getting dropped, delayed transmission, and waiting for the connection to catch up. This causes frustration and irritabilities in our kids who are stressed out enough. Therefore, I propose that the council take a strong look at the internet situation in CK so our students can get good and consistent working connection to their virtual classrooms. On the subject of people living on the streets, this is not some way to override all the funky rules and regulations on refabricating an older building, even temporarily, to at least let the homeless get out of the weather. Is it true that regulatory government officials have swelled heads and no hearts? If buildings like the one on Grand East could be used for temp housing, perhaps illegal pot growers in the same building would move out. On the subject of Victoria Avenue infrastructure, yes, it needs to be done. Yes, it will cost a bundle of money. Yes, that money comes out of taxes, etc. Yes, left turn lanes at McNaughton and Grand would be beneficial to all traffic on the street. No, sidewalk removal and bike lanes has nothing to do with getting my poop to the sanitation plant. Common sense in that area alone would pay for a lot of the other things we need. Truly, it has been said, common sense is like a deodorant. Those that need it the most use it the least. Councillors, a 3.9% hike may add $300 to my taxes. It may hurt my style of living by cutting into my fixed income, but please, don't waste my money on your pet projects that are not needed, like pulling out hedges. Rather childish, wasn't it? Please do what is right for all of Chatham-Kent.
And that is our last deputation. So again, I want to thank everyone who submitted deputations. And if you would still like to submit a deputation prior to tomorrow's meeting, you can send them during the day, and they will again be read out before the budget committee. So our next item on the agenda is the police services presentation. So I will turn it over to Chief Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that my PowerPoint presentation is going to come up. I don't see it on my screen right now. Hello?
I think they're just working on getting it up, Chief Con.
Okay, super, thank you. I'll just wait a moment then until they bring it up. Before I get started though, I just wanted to take a moment and publicly thank those who assisted me in drafting this budget that I'm going to present here tonight. Our emergency communications supervisor, Mr. Brian French, who was instrumental in putting together the PowerPoint, as well as our own CFO, Mr. Gord Clinton, our budget director, Mr. Stephen Brown, and budget analysts, Mr. Dennis McDonald and Mr. Chris Heaton, as well as our own financial coordinator, Ms. Kelly Veldboom. Much appreciated and thank you.
Chief Con, you should have received a prompt to allow you to present your screen.
Okay, so just show my screen.
Yes.
There we go. I still don't have anything, Madam Clerk.
I think we're seeing your screen. Do you have two separate screens that you're using, Chief Con?
Nope, just one.
Okay.
Well, as long as everyone else can see it, I'll just I'll prompt to go to the next slide once ready to do so.
Okay,
Ladies
just
and
one
gentlemen.
second. Just one second, Chief Con. I think Steve Brown's got your presentation, so he's going to put it up because right now we're not seeing anything. So just one second.
Okay. Yep. There we go.
Yep, you're good to go now, Chief Con.
Super, thank you. This year, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, is unprecedented, and I know council has a very difficult and challenging budget ahead of them. So, in the spirit of brevity, I kept my presentation short with only 6-7 slides. It is brief and predominantly budget related. As a result, my overall presentation this evening will take a look at some quick stats surrounding our police service, occurrences per year, operating expenses, cop to pop ratio, and briefly look at some other police comparison budgets for this year and previous years. I believe and hope that you will find it informative, and I will certainly field any questions at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please.
Chief Con, sorry to interrupt. It's Judy. I'm just getting a few messages here that it's very hard to hear you, especially through when people are watching on TV. So I don't know if you're far away from a microphone or I don't know if you have a headset or something, but you're just very echoey and it's hard. It's not clear.
I have a headset. How's that? I'll bring the mic a little bit closer.
Okay, that might be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. How's that? Is that still? There we go. Is that good, ladies and gentlemen?
It's still a little bit echoey, but you are a little bit louder. So.
Okay. Well, let's start with a quick overview of our service, containing some quick facts and figures. We are the 17th largest police service in Ontario, and there are approximately 47 municipal police services and one provincial police, OPP. We have 164 sworn officers, 62 civilian support staff, giving us a total of 226 full-time employees. We serve approximately 106,000 citizens, at least according to our latest stats, 2019, and 23 communities, comprising the 5th largest municipal geographic area in the province. In addition to that, we patrol 2,458 square kilometers and 3,400 kilometers of roadway, which, as you know, provides our police service with some additional challenges given the immense area, the geographical area that we have to patrol. As you can appreciate, there is a direct correlation with costs associated with gas, wear and tear, and life cycles on equipment, especially patrol vehicles, as opposed to some of our competitors, such as Guelph, Barrie, Brantford, and Kingston, who have far less geographical areas to patrol. Last year, we responded to 76,851 occurrences, which is an increase of 4,559 occurrences from 2019. So on average, our officers are responding to 211 calls for service per day, which is actually a 12 call for service per day increase from 2019. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. These graphs break down the total amount of police-related calls we respond to on an annual basis. Over the last 21 years, you can see the least amount of calls we did was back in 2000. Actually, 98 and 99 were slightly lower than 38,259. And the most we've ever responded to was last year at, as you can see, 76,851. We have now more than doubled our calls for service while having the least amount of staff, certainly in comparison to the past 23 years or 23 years ago. I can certainly recall a time when we had 2 deputy chiefs, 4 inspectors, and 234 full-time employees. Our average is approximately 50,000 calls for service. And as you can see by the graphs, or depicted by the graphs, there was a decreased trend from 2008 through to 2013. But as you can see, the last 6-7 years, there has been an increase, certainly last year. I suspect that we will continue to see this trend into the future, primarily due to mission creep, but also with the implementation of our MDTs, officers are creating and tracking more calls for service. Mission creep, as I think everybody has heard me talk about before in the past, is basically the expansion of our duties and responsibilities into other social services or social service areas, which were historically and traditionally not our mandate. What a lot of people don't realize is that actually only about 20% of our incidents involve crimes. The other 80% deal with what we refer to as complex social disorders. We're dealing with far more people who are suffering from mental health addictions, emotional violence, alcoholism, poverty, and homelessness than ever before. To illustrate this point, I would refer to our calls for service surrounding mental health and the creation of our mobile crisis team, which started in 2006. And obviously, since 2006, we've been tracking our calls surrounding mental health. I can confirm the fact that back in 2006, we responded to 405 calls for service surrounding mental health. And historically, since that time, we've seen approximately a 10% increase each year since 2006. However, last year, 2020, we responded to close to 1,500 calls for service surrounding mental health, which is a 23% increase from 2019, when we responded to 1,191 calls for service surrounding mental health. This was primarily due to COVID and the fact that the first few months, other social services who usually assist us were working either from home and further had reduced their services. Subsequently, we, police, had to pick up that reduction, and as a result, further mission creep occurred. As a result, all of our staff, our emergency communication operators, our detectives, our front desk officers, our frontline officers, our civilian support, are all doing more. Couple that with the challenges associated to COVID and the additional stress one can appreciate how stretched our resources are. That being said, we are hoping that further assistance from our first strategy, the implementation of our CCTV, our bike patrol unit, the inoculation of our citizens, the increase, we're currently looking at enhancing our mobile crisis team, and the implementation of our provincially mandated community safety and well-being plan, which I will hopefully present April of this year to council, will mitigate some of these complex social trends going forward into 2021 and hopefully even beyond. Next slide, please.
Chief Khan, sorry to interrupt again. It's Judy. Yeah, we're getting still a lot of feedback. I'm getting a lot of messages that it's very muffled and it's very hard to hear. IT is thinking that perhaps you're going through both your laptop microphone and your headset microphone, and perhaps that's what's being so echoey. So just wondering if I'm just online with IT here, and Ryan might be messaging you. So maybe we can just take a 2-minute break right now, and I just think it'll be better for the public to be able to hear more clear. So if you put your microphone on mute, Ryan from IT is going to try to help you for 30 seconds to get the right microphone going, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
For anyone tuning in, we are just having some technical difficulties, and we are just working with the speaker right now to fix that. So hopefully we'll be on in the next minute or two.
Yeah, it still sounds muffled. How do I sound?
Actually, Chief Khan, it's Judy, and you sound wonderful compared to the voice before. So perfect. Carry on. Sorry. Thank you for everybody's patience, and thank you, Chief Khan, for your patience too.
Yeah, thank you. All right, carrying right on. This slide, ladies and gentlemen, is a breakdown of our operating expenses for the entire organization. As you can see, close to 90% of our operating budget goes towards salaries, wages, and benefits, which really leaves us very little room for other expenses, including fleet, administrative costs, and the lowest at only 2% actually remains for operational expenses. And this can be absorbed fairly quickly if we have a couple major crimes such as a homicide or a shooting, for example, last night. Thankfully, we only had one homicide last year. Unfortunately, that was over the Christmas holidays, actually Boxing Day. But that individual has been arrested and is still in custody and charged with second-degree murder. What I've referred to, though, are all what we refer to as threshold offenses, requiring extensive investigation, major case management, and as a result, they ultimately incur overtime. Having said that, over the next few slides, you're going to see that our officer to population ratio and our overall police budget are either better or within equivalent proportionate ranges in comparison to our comparators throughout the province. As you can see, this slide takes a look at the amount of officers per 100,000 people ratio, sometimes referred to as the cop to pop ratio. The national level is actually 183 officers, and the provincial level here in Ontario is 174 officers for every 100,000 people. Once again, as you can see, we are well below both of those averages. And there was really only one service, that being Guelph, who had a significantly smaller ratio than us. There are certainly a couple services which are very close to us, for example, Kingston and Sudbury. But at the other end of the spectrum, you have police services such as Thunder Bay and Windsor, who have far more police officers, both at 205 per 100,000 people. And as a result, the costs associated to those additional officers. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that 90% of our budget, which is the provincial norm, goes towards salaries and benefits. Normally here is where I would provide council with a slide that provides a high altitude, or what I like to refer to as a succinct overview of our police budget, which usually contains anywhere from 14 to 20 budgetary lines, breaking down our corporate provision costs and additional police service items, including some additional funding and capital projects. But this is a contractual year for us, and as a result, it restricts what we can discuss in regular or open council. Having said that, what I can say is that we have a total of $769,947 in expenditure increases. This includes costs associated to direct cost provisions such as medical, corporate, insurance, fleet, and facilities, all of which the municipality finance department calculates for us, plus other police service items which fall under labor relations that we had to forecast in respect to potential contractual issues, at least for this year anyway, 2021, as our current collective agreements, both for the senior and junior officers associations, expired December 31st, 2020. Minus the close to $400,000 in offsetting supplementaries, which I have been able to obtain through either grants or secondments, provides us a total 2021 police budget of $32,311,633. This is a 1.16% increase to last year's budget, which has a 0.23% tax impact. This current slide, which is up right now, quickly captures a review of the CKPS police budget increases over the last, it says 13 years, but I'm going to say 14 years. So you can see we have been rather consistent trying to keep the increases in line with consumer price index and inflation. In 2008, although it's not depicted on the graph, we actually had a 5% increase to our budget, but I did not include it as it would have skewed my average, which over the last 12 years has been approximately 2.2, 2.3%. Next slide, please. This final slide examines the 2021 police budget increases, specifically our comparators for this year, and what their respective boards and some councils have approved already. I can tell you that Barrie's was approved on Monday night. London's is already approved by council. St. Thomas's has been approved by council, as has Sarnia. The other ones are currently waiting to be presented to council, but all of these have been approved by their respective police services boards. You can see that it ranges from the highest increase this year of 5.99% for Brantford Police Service to the lowest increase, if approved here tonight, Chatham-Kent Police Service at 1.16%. The average of the 11 police services is, as you can see to the far right, there's an average of approximately I know it says 3.56, but that's a typo. It should read 3.35%. Now, if council would like to approve a 3.35% to our police budget, I would be more than happy and pleased to accept. However, if not, then I would ask that you approve the 1.16% I'm recommending here tonight. There are no requests in this budget for additional staff, and more importantly, no service reductions. In addition, I would add that this is the lowest increase for our police budget in the history, 23 years of our existence. I think that given the additional challenges associated to COVID, as well as having to forecast contractual issues for 2021, this budget, although not quite meeting council's direction of 1%, is very close, fiscally responsible, and much like the times we currently find ourselves living in, unprecedented. As a result, I sincerely hope that you will approve the budget, and I wish to thank you for your time and consideration, as well as all our rank and file who may be listening tonight, who over the last year went further than the extra mile in keeping our community safe. And with that, I will certainly field and open it up to the panel for any questions or concerns you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Khan. Our first question is from Councillor Hall.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And first of all, thank you very much for the presentation tonight, Chief Khan. I do have about three lines of questions that I'd like to ask. One, starting with the one with the deputation tonight, and then a couple as well that follows up from our community consultation meetings from last week. So I'll start with the with the deputation that was provided tonight that I was hoping you could address tonight, Chief. It was from the Wallaceburg BIA, and I'm sure you heard it tonight, but just to quickly summarize, I know the BIA board was, they've dealt with the downtown Wallaceburg has dealt with a few break-ins to businesses lately, and it's definitely drawn concern by the BIA board. I know they're currently working on a long-term strategy, and some of the early feedback that they've gotten, in terms of while working on that, some of the weaknesses that they're hearing from that feedback is security and safety. So I know they're working hard on that, and it's something that is top of mind, and it is of concern for downtown business owners and people with the BIA in Wallaceburg. So I guess first of all, Chief, could you maybe address those concerns that the people of Wallaceburg have in the downtown core?
Yeah, certainly. Those are disturbing comments. Obviously, these are very challenging times for everyone. In response to the safety, security, crime in our community, I would refer to the Crime Severity Index, which I provide to the Police Service Board on an annual basis. Last year was a very difficult year, not just here, but everywhere in Canada. The Crime Severity Index across Canada saw an increase of 5%. And this goes to all the measures of the Crime Severity Index, which takes into consideration the overall Crime Severity Index, including violent and non-violent crimes. All of them increased for the 5th consecutive year in a row. It's very difficult to say this, but last year, police reported 678 homicides, 20 more than the year before. Now, thankfully, we only had one last year, but one is too many. But in taking a look, or I should say in comparing our stats to the overall Crime Severity Index, we've actually seen a decrease. We've seen a decrease in all elements in both the overall Crime Severity Index. Our Crime Severity Index decreased. Chatham-Kent's rating was actually 75.6 the year before. However, last year we decreased a further 7.9% to actually 69.6%. Our Violent Crime Severity Index is one of the lowest in the country. Our rating actually is at 56.7%, but that is far below the national level, which actually went up to 89.67%. And then our Nonviolent Crime Severity Index, which deals with, for example, the primary concerns that the BIA are certainly concerned with, and that's mischief, thefts, those type of offenses. Once again, our Crime Severity Index was actually, although it went up nationally, this trend was not seen here locally in Chatham-Kent, with our rating actually decreasing substantially from the previous year by 10%. Last year, we decreased to 74.1%, and this is the lowest we have ever been in regards to nonviolent crime, and the first time we have ever been below the national average. So I think that a lot of the proactive preventative measures that we have put in place, for example, our STOP strategy, strategic targeting of property crime, our community mobilization unit, things on the horizon as well, our CTV, the implementation of our CCTV, our bike patrol unit. We're slowly starting to see some gains in those areas. So although I appreciate their concerns, and we will continue to tackle those concerns, I'm glad that they brought it to our attention. I will certainly be speaking to the officers, or I should say the staff sergeants and sergeants to disseminate that information up to our District 1 reporting area, but also to a lot of you. I know our community mobilization officer, which works out of Wallaceburg, Constable Deb Lafreniere. And she does a lot of work behind the scenes in trying to resolve a lot of these concerns.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for mentioning Constable Lafreniere too, Chief. I was speaking with her today too, and she's definitely on this and in constant communication with our business owners. So thank you for that. And maybe one more quick follow up to this. I know you mentioned it in your comments there about the CCTV project. I know this was something that the BIA is very interested in and is keeping their eye on. Can you just provide a quick update of where we're at with that, and maybe touch on, I know it was said when we approved this back in the fall that, pending how this project goes and how this pilot project, what the results are, that could be looked at to go, be implemented in other communities outside of Chatham, after the pilot. So could you touch on just a bit of an update on that, where we're at with it, and when other communities might expect that could happen in their community?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. Obviously, with COVID, everything's been pushed back, as everyone here can appreciate. That's the same with our CCTV program as well. We have received the funding for it, so we were successful in the provincial grant, and it is operation full steam ahead. What we are currently doing is we're working in collaboration with the municipal IT, and they are currently in the process of replacing a lot of the poles in the downtown core area of Chatham proper. And obviously, some of these light poles, light stands, is where we would like to strategically place these cameras. Unfortunately, they're tentatively looking at starting this project perhaps in May of this year. So what we're hoping to do is once they get the fiber optics in place, we're hoping to initially start with 2 cameras at 3rd and King and 5th and King, because we're actually going to place them on traffic light poles, so those ones will not be replaced. But as the municipality and IT transitions those antiquated poles to the new poles, then we will proceed with placing the CCTVs on those new poles. So unfortunately, we're at their pace as to how this unfolds, but we're hoping that we will certainly have a couple cameras in place by the first, or I should say by the 2nd quarter of this year. And once again, as the poles get replaced, we will slowly place those cameras into place. And then as per the business plan, we would like to do a 1-year analysis, both a quantitative and qualitative analysis, delve into those, into the empirical data and the results garnered as a result. And if it is successful, and I'm projecting that it will be, then we would move into phase 2, phase 3, where we would be looking at the outside hamlets, for example, Wallaceburg and Ridgetown and places like that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for those comments and answering those questions, Chief. Shifting gears now, thank you for the time, Mr. Chair. I have a couple more questions, but these ones stem from the community meetings that we had last week. So this came from a community member, Chief Khan. So can you just describe or provide an answer? What would the financial impact be to the Chatham-Kent Police's proposal for taking over Leamington's policing services? How does that impact, I guess, what's the financial impact to Chatham-Kent residents for that Leamington proposal?
As I indicated when I initially came before council, I wanted to be able to stand before council and before my police services board and unequivocally and safely state that it will have no financial impact. And that is the path that we are going to take if we are successful. I can confirm with everyone that we are still in negotiations with Leamington. And as everyone can appreciate, that's where we're going to delve into the weeds and hopefully be able, or I will be hopefully able to, if we are successful, come back to the board and council with a more thorough and fulsome report surrounding this. But at the preliminary stages, the very preliminary stages that we are in regards to this RFP, we have factored in issues, for example, severance pay, buyouts, things of that nature, so that it does not have an effect on any of the taxpayers here in Chatham-Kent.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And one final question, shifting gears again, once again, from the community consultation meetings. And this was, I think, came from, some recent stories in the news, and they come up from time to time as well. But Chief, can you address the issue about, officers that are on paid leave, and how does that impact the budget this year?
I'm sorry, Councillor, paid leave. I have no officers that are on paid leave. I have officers, who may be on special leaves of absence without pay. I have officers that are off on LTD. I have officers that are off on WSIB occupational issues. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm referring to some of the officers, and once again, this came from the consultation meeting. Some of the officers that may be facing disciplinary action and that sort of thing. They remain. The people that are facing disciplinary action, I guess.
Yeah, excellent question. We are, as everyone knows, we are governed by the Ontario Police Services Act of Ontario. And I do have some officers. I have a couple that are off on suspension with pay. And as per the Police Services Act, certainly getting into discipline, that is the process that we have. The only time I can suspend an officer without pay is if they are convicted of an offense. Remember, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So they need to be convicted of an offense and sentenced to a period of incarceration. So there are times where, yes, I would love to be able to suspend officers without pay, but unfortunately my hands are tied as per the Ontario Police Services Act.
Okay, excellent. And I guess just to follow up to that, how does that, where does that show up in, I guess, in the budget? You know what I mean? Like, how do you prepare for that, that type of thing?
These people are all budgeted for on a go-forward basis. So their salaries, their benefits are all budgeted for at the beginning of the year.
Excellent. Thank you very much for all the answers, Chief Khan, and thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Finn. Councillor Finn, if you're speaking, I can't hear you. Might be muted.
Actually, Councillor Finn had to leave, and she said that she would be logging back in for our closed session.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions. As a board member, I would just like to say that we were really pleased when the chief came back with the draft budget. They went away a few times, sharpened their pencils, realizing the challenges that we're all facing this year. And they came back with this 1.16% increase. Now, and then, you see the slide where, the 20% of, the 76,000 calls for service, and it just keeps going up. So we were really pleased to see them come back with this in this challenging time without any compromise to the safety of our community. I would just like to say that we were all really pleased with that because it was a challenge. And I guess, Mr. Chair, at this point, would it be proper for me to move the chief's budget?
Yeah, you can make that motion. We can get it seconded, and then we'll still entertain any questions or comments before
Okay.
we vote on that.
All right.
So do we?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Crew.
Yeah, I'd just like to move the budget at 1.16% for the Chatham-Kent Police Service.
Thank you. And do we have a second, Mayor Caniff?
Mr. Chair, certainly you have a seconder.
Thank you. Councilor Crew, did you? Oh,
no, that's all my comments, Mr. Chair. The other things I had, I was just going to comment on the Wallaceburg issues that were brought up by the citizen, but that's already been addressed. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councilor Bondi, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman McGregor. And thank you, Chief Khan, for your presentation. Just a quick follow-up to Councillor Hall's question. Then I do have like a following question, but if an officer is suspended with pay prior to conviction, if there is a conviction, does that pay come back because the person was guilty? Because it could, which I know has happened. I'm obviously asking kind of a loaded question here, but you know, if a charge is delayed for years and years and years, then that pay, is that retroactive? Because I really honestly don't know the answer to that question.
The short answer, Councillor, is no. They're on suspension with pay. They continue to receive their pay, even if they're found guilty. In some of our more egregious offenses, obviously after criminal charges, we proceed with Police Service Act charges, and there is a plethora of dispositions which can be issued by the hearing officer in respect to penalty surrounding Police Service Act charges, including demotion and all the way up to termination. And I know in some of our more, like I indicated, some of our more egregious ones, the two off the top of my head that I'm thinking of, they ended in termination. So they lost their job. And the other one most recently was a demotion, which ultimately cost that officer $30,000.
Okay, thank you for that. My original question, which comes from a constituent, which I think we ask you this every year, but you know, I think I'm obligated to ask again. Is there provincial legislation that provides that the police budget be delivered to council and the public on a line-by-line basis rather than an overview? I think I know the answer to this, but I will put it in your good hands to explain the answer, which again, just to clarify, we don't receive a line-by-line police budget expenditure. Some in the community have suggested that provincially it is legislated that we can and should be delivered that. And I would just like your response to that question, please.
Yeah, certainly. I get that question quite a bit, Councillor. As per the Ontario Police Services Act, which is in place right now, obviously, I mean, it's going through some amendments. Hopefully, we're going to have a new, the acronym is actually going to be COPS, Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act, but they're currently drafting the regulations. But the present Ontario Police Services Act actually stipulates in establishing an overall budget for the board, council does not have the authority to approve or disapprove specific items in the estimates. So as a result, no, you cannot go line by line. The board could go line by line, but council cannot. Council basically can only approve or not approve the overall estimate. So I hope that answers your question.
It does again. So thank you
No
very
worries.
much for the answer again. And Yeah, thank you very much. I assume your service had a busy day yesterday, something that doesn't happen every day in Chatham, Ontario. So thank you very much for the work that all you guys do, and guys and girls, of course. So thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Kirkwood White.
Hi, Chief. How are you?
It's been very busy, Councillor, as you can appreciate.
Just wanted an opportunity to say thank you for your report. I had occasion yesterday to participate in one of the Roma conference breakout sessions on the development of the community safety and well-being plans, and heard from both Cornwall and the region of Peel on what they've been doing. And I have to say that we have enjoyed the statistics here in Chatham-Kent, largely because of the community partnerships that have been developed as part of the first strategy, which you mentioned in your report. I just have one tiny question that came to me related to whether any of the expenditures in the police budget are one-time expenses that could have been covered through reserves.
Not in this current budget. There are some, which I'm just going to go to my sheet here. Just bear with me 1 second.
Sure.
Normally, if it is a one-time cost, I will take a look at reserves to augment or incur the costs associated to a capital project.
Okay.
There is nothing in this budget right now that I'm just taking a look at it right now. No, the only two things that we looked at penciling, well, we looked at a multitude of different issues, but to even drill it a little bit or try to reduce it further to get to that 1% or even better, lower than 1%, was entertaining the possibility of closing some of our satellite offices. So we were entertaining possibly closing the Ridgetown satellite office and the Blenheim substation. But we don't want to do, we do not wish to do that. The other thing that we examined and we actually did implement was extending the life cycle directed to certain vehicles within our fleet, not our frontline vehicles. I want to keep those at around the 2-3 year mark because, as everyone can appreciate, those vehicles are being driven 24/7, 365 days a year. That being said, some of our CI vehicles, our detective vehicles, our administrative vehicles, we did increase the life cycle of those vehicles from 5 to 7 years, and we were able to garner some more efficiencies and get the percentage down a little bit further.
Okay. Appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we don't have any more hands up right now. So unless I see one pop up in the next 5 seconds, I will call the vote on approving the police services budget request.
We are still waiting for one more counselor to vote. So if you can remember to hit submit, please. Okay, all votes are. And the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of council.
Okay, so the next agenda item is we'll be moving on to the infrastructure tab. So that is tab 4. We have 20 minutes until we'll move to closed session, so we can make a start through this tab. Councillor Harrigan, did you have a question or motion relating to an item on this tab?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do. I have a motion related to line 8 on this tab, and I had shared it with staff previously. So what I would like to do is move that the amount of line 8 be decreased by $200,000 to be $475,000. And if I can get a seconder for that motion, I can explain why.
That's seconded by Councillor Oche. Did I see your hand there, Councillor Oche?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so the motion's seconded. Go ahead, Councillor Harrigan.
Great. So, you know, in a lot of the engagement that I know I've done, and certainly that we've heard with some of the budget survey comments and the comments of the general public, there was a message that was given to us that placed a lot of value in infrastructure funding. So the total amount that we see on this tab are really paying for bricks and mortar of the municipality, right, of our infrastructure and our assets. And one of the most underfunded categories that we have within our life cycle is underground infrastructure. So the pardon my pun, but the crap that nobody wants to talk about is the most underfunded in Chatham-Kent. And so a couple of years ago, the council passed a motion to add money to this particular funding for our asset management plan because it is the most underfunded. And you know, if times were different, I would be pushing really hard for us to fund this entire $675,000. But I think pairing off a little bit of this funding really just recognizes the challenge that we face and how, as councillors, we all have to give a little bit of our priorities, but still continue to invest in what's important. And so, you know, we've had lots of conversation about underground infrastructure in the past. I know certainly Thomas has shared with us the graph where you could see kind of where infrastructure is funded, and I believe it sits at you know, under 30% of what we need every year. And so I do think this is worth investing in. But as I had said, reducing some of these important things by a little bit may add up over time across this budget to help the impact to taxpayers. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Councillor Harrigan. Do we have any other comments related to this motion? I don't see any hands right now. Oh, Councillor Foss. Councillor Foss, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that this is a year 3 of a 4-year term commitment type thing. What effect will that have in the long run as far as trying to accomplish, I guess, what they're trying to accomplish with that storm sewer reserve? Maybe Thomas can add his comments to that.
Thomas, are you available for comment?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the storm sewer collector network, our annual requirement is close to 11.5 million, and we're at about 3.2. So that's a total of 28% funding, and that's the less than 30% Councillor Harrigan spoke of. So this will definitely, even with the 475, it's helping to accelerate that closure at a much faster rate. What I would suggest is that next year we take another look at it and we continue to, if we can, keep this level of funding, which is higher than, say, the 1% that we have proposed overall. So we're in fact loading this one up so that we can catch up because it was underfunded for so many years. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Foss.
I guess it does, but I know that we've been striving to try and maintain our infrastructure levels, and I kind of see this as a step backwards. Since how we've funded it for 2 years already at that level, and then when we're 2 years into the finishing of that infrastructure, I see us falling behind, I guess. So.
Well, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and that is absolutely true. I know the council are looking for savings, so that is a case, but still, even at the 475,000 that's proposed, it's better than what we've been able to do in the past. So it's strictly a council decision. Again, we're only at 28%. We will have the master plan completed near the end of this year. We'll be in a position next year to start looking at funding some of that work. And again, we only have, even with this proposal, we'll be at about 3.6 million. So that sounds like a lot of money, but it's not going to accomplish a whole lot. So if we're looking, I guess I'm fine with the proposal if we can find a way to accelerate in future years. Thank you.
Just one question, I guess. Is there any storm sewer work committed for this year? Other than Victoria Ave, I guess.
Well, no, actually, Victoria Ave is going to occur probably the following year. So I'd have to check on that. Every year, what we try to do certainly is take a portion of this where we have a major rehab of a street where we're repaving, for example. We will take money from this if, in fact, the storm sewers, the sanitary, and even possibly water will get funding from the PUC. I'd have to check on our schedule for this year if we have any major projects like that. For example, we just did Delaware Ave last year in Chatham. So I would have to check on that. I can certainly get back to you on that. But regardless, we would, it only usually takes a portion of this amount from the life cycle. And again, we're just trying to move forward in a positive fashion on this entire underground infrastructure, which is extremely expensive to move forward with.
Okay, thank you, Thomas.
Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if there's a possibility that we could take the 200,000 from this year from the strategic planning reserve to fund this totally up to 675,000 for this year.
Gord, could you take that question, please?
Thank you, through the chair. I think we first should wait and see whether this motion gets approved before we. But then I think we could take another motion to do that after this, if you'd like a motion for 200,000 to be moved from the strategic reserve to the storm sewer life cycle reserve. But we should deal with that as a separate motion after this one's dealt with.
Certainly, that's fine with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Gord. And I think it's important to note that that would be movement of one-time money. So it would just be shifting money from one reserve to another. And the type of funding we're talking about here is a year-over-year increase. So the budgeted item is a 675 increase per year. So 675 this year, 675 next year. So if we take $200,000 and move that sideways in reserve, that's not addressing the year-over-year increase in funding.
No, I do realize that, but next year is the fourth year of the, like it'll be done after next year. So I do understand that, Bill.
Yeah, it's just to know it's a base budget item, so it's not done after next year. That 675 is still within the base budget. So this is an increase, not a one-time amount of money to be spent.
Correct. I just mean that it won't be going up another 675 on in the fifth year. It'll just
right. Yeah, correct. Councillor Carmen McGregor. Councillor McGregor, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. I guess my question is somewhat similar, but I am wondering if this can happen through the budget process, or does this need to happen out of the budget process? Could this be extended for this increase to 5 years? Drop it, allowing us to take out the 200,000 this year, because we know how tight and the situation all of us are in, and trying to bring the budget down this year. But could we extend this increase into a 5th year, or does that have to come back to the floor as a separate motion when the 4 years end?
Perhaps I could answer that, Chair. So the asset management plan was approved by the previous council, and is a lasting document that runs through this council as well. This motion of incremental increase to storm sewer was a motion at the first budget of this council to last through the 4 years and of the council. And I guess I'd look to the clerk on whether you can or not, but I think the intent was that this council was going to make increases over the 4-year term, incrementally each year, and not be binding the next council's decisions. I know moving forward, we will be looking at a multi-year budget that will impact the first year of the next council, but I'll leave it at that. Probably.
And that's fine if that's the way it should happen, Gord. I'm fine with that. But then it could possibly or be presented back to council for the first term of the next council to make that decision again, to maybe do it for another 4 years or whatever, how many years, but right, correct? And if that's it, if that's the answer, that's fine. I'm happy with that. That's okay.
Yes, of course, the next council could make the same motion to carry it through their term.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hall?
Yeah, just very quickly, did we not trim this ask last year during budget as well? Like we didn't we make a motion to not increase the same amount? Is that right, Gord?
Thank you. Yes. Last year, the draft budget had an amount of 550,000, and it was reduced to 300,000.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it's Thomas Kelly, General
Go ahead,
Manager
Thomas.
of IS. I just wanted to get back with the details to Councillor Foss. So we have 4 streets we're looking at this year: Galbraith Ave, Elizabeth Ave, Wellington, and Grand Ave, all in Chatham. Those projects we're anticipating to take 2.5 million out. So we will have a net of 700K left in our life cycle after we move forward with those projects.
Thank you, Thomas. Councillor Foss, did you have a follow-up question?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think that's very helpful information due to the fact that it's really going to reduce the amount of money we have in that storm sewer reserve, and by putting the amount that we're putting back in is going to help stimulate that reserve as well. So I probably won't be supporting the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments related to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I will call the question.
All votes are in, and the motion passes.
Okay, so seeing as we are at nearing 8 o'clock and we need to move to closed session, we
Mr.
will.
Chair.
Yep.
Sorry, it's
Go ahead.
Judy. I received an email and I was just wondering if you could take a minute to have Steve maybe explain the police motion. There was just a couple messages with regards to, it looked like it was reducing the police budget. So if Steve could just clarify that for council, I think that would help for the evening anyways.
Sure, Steve.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So the motion that was approved was for tab 3 within the binder, and that has an overall reduction of 399,000. The other items that are not within that are the wages, which are within the closed session, and also the corporate provisions, which are throughout the binder within different tabs, because you have inflation and stuff along those lines. So really all we're approving in tab 3 is the 399,637 decrease.
Thanks, Steve. Do we have any questions related to that explanation? Great, great. I don't see any hands up. So we will, I'll read out a motion we'll need to move into close. So it's that the Budget Committee move into a closed session meeting pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended for the following reasons. Identifiable individuals, labor relations, employee negotiations, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege in regard to 2021 labor contracts, net job evaluation changes, net progression increase per labor contracts, and that the next open session meeting of the Budget Committee is January 28th at 6 o'clock. Also, as per the public notice bylaw, Chatham-Kent Council hereby gives public notice of its intention to hold public meetings and adopt the 2021 budget immediately following receipt of a recommended budget from the Budget Committee. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Bondi, seconded by Councillor Harrigan. Anybody opposed? None opposed. So we will adjourn to closed session. Closed session will begin in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you will receive a Skype invite for that meeting. Thank you.